I never expected that accepting a late-night assignment would change my life forever. My name is Gideon March, a mid-level systems engineer in Portland, Oregon. It was an unusually quiet spring evening, and I had just wrapped up my standard 9-to-5 workday when my manager slid a file across the desk. "Gideon, we have a presentation tomorrow morning at the new Cascade Tech Park campus. I need you to prepare the data and stay late if necessary." I hesitated for a moment, glancing at my watch. It was 6:15 p.m., and most of the office had already cleared out. But I knew my family's financial situation wouldn't allow me the luxury of refusing overtime. I nodded, forcing a confident smile. "Consider it done, sir. I'll stay as long as needed." By the time I arrived at the sprawling office park, the main building's lights had mostly dimmed. Only a few security guards lingered near the lobby, chatting quietly among themselves. The campus itself was vast. Glass-paneled offices reflected the fading sunlight, and in the distance, a large ornamental pond shimmered under the last traces of daylight. The place was famous for its cutting-edge design and green surroundings, but eerily silent when empty. One guard stopped me near the entrance. "You haven't been here before, right? Show me your ID." I fumbled in my bag, realizing my official card hadn't been issued yet. "It's my first day. I've got the job letter on my phone. You can check the email if you want." The guard squinted at the screen and finally nodded. "All right, but stay inside during the day. After hours, this building isn't safe. No one should be lingering here alone." I reassured him and walked into the empty halls, the faint hum of air conditioning my only companion. The office that usually thrived with activity now felt like a hollow shell. Every step echoed against the glass walls. I set up my laptop at my assigned desk, connected to the slow office Wi-Fi, and started sorting the presentation files. It was quiet, almost too quiet. Half an hour passed, then an hour. The building's elevators chimed occasionally, but no one entered or exited. I felt a twinge of unease, but shrugged it off. After all, this was just a corporate campus. Yet the shadows seemed longer, the empty corridors colder, and somewhere beyond the paneled walls, I thought I could hear a faint, soft crying. I shook my head. "Get a grip, Gideon. Probably just the wind or a neighbor's kid." But deep down, a part of me wondered, why would a building designed for innovation feel so haunted when empty? The office lights flickered as I worked, but I dismissed it as a minor electrical glitch. I had been sorting through spreadsheets for the presentation, trying to stay focused, yet the silence around me was suffocating. By now, the sun had fully set, and the outdoor lamps cast long shadows across the campus lawns. The ornamental pond, once sparkling in the sunlight, now looked murky, almost black, reflecting the dim glow from the surrounding buildings. I glanced at my watch. 7:45 p.m. My coworkers had all left, their cars gone, leaving me completely alone. The building's design, so open and airy during the day, felt like a cage now. Every reflective surface seemed to hold a shadow, every corner a hidden presence. I told myself repeatedly that it was nothing, just nerves. But when I reached for my coffee cup, I heard it. A soft, distant thump, like a child's footsteps somewhere near the pond. I froze. My heartbeat accelerated. No one should be here. I left my chair and crept to the glass doors that faced the pond. The campus outside was deserted. The fountain in the middle of the artificial pond was still. No movement in the shadows of the trees lining the walkway. Yet, as I peered closer, I could make out a faint figure. a girl sitting at the pond's edge. She was small, hunched, as if trying to make herself invisible. My rational mind screamed that this was impossible. The campus closed hours ago. Security guards wouldn't allow anyone to wander here. I debated whether to approach, but a strange pull drew me forward. I stepped outside, the chill of the evening air brushing against my skin. "Hey, are you okay?" I called softly. The girl didn't respond, only lifting her head slowly, her face pale, illuminated by the dim reflection of the building lights. Then, she started crying, a quiet, almost inaudible sobbing that pierced the stillness. I felt a surge of concern. "Are you lost? Do you need help?" She shook her head, whispering, "I just like being here. I come here sometimes. It's peaceful." Her words made no sense. At this hour, alone, why would anyone come here? My rational brain tried to explain it away, but the unease crawling over me refused to be silenced. I stayed a few moments, talking gently, making sure she was safe, before finally leading her toward the pathway back to the main building. That night, as I returned to my office, I couldn't shake the image of her pale, wet face, reflecting the pond's dark water. Something about her presence unsettled me. I knew, though I didn't understand why, that this encounter was not ordinary. After escorting the girl away from the pond, I returned to the building, but unease clung to me like a wet coat. The lobby, normally bustling with employees and their chatter, was silent except for the faint hum of the air conditioning. Shadows pooled in the corners, stretching unnaturally along the sleek marble floors. My footsteps echoed, bouncing back from the high glass walls as if the building itself were listening. I set my laptop on the desk and tried to concentrate on the presentation slides, but every shadowed corner seemed to twitch. The faint crying from outside had stopped, or maybe I had imagined it. But the sense that someone, or something, was watching never left. The elevators chimed occasionally, though no one entered or exited. I debated whether to take a break, step outside, and check the pond again, but a growing chill warned me against it. Minutes passed, stretching into an hour. Then, I heard it. A soft sob, closer this time, echoing through the hallways. My pulse quickened. It was coming from the elevator lobby. Hesitating, I approached the doors. The metal panels reflected the pale light, but I saw no one. Then I realized the elevator wasn't moving. Its door stood open as if inviting me inside. My instinct screamed to run, but I stepped forward, the hairs on my arms standing on end. The interior was empty, but a faint, sweet scent lingered, like flowers long dead. I pressed the ground floor button, but the elevator refused to move. My fingers tapped the button repeatedly. Nothing. Finally, with a resigned sigh, I stepped back. Suddenly, the faint sobbing resumed, closer than before. My eyes darted across the hallway. Empty. Nothing. I could feel it. The presence of someone not alive, yet undeniably there. I tried to rationalize. Maybe a late-night maintenance worker, a lost staffer? But logic faltered as the sound of soft footsteps echoed behind me. I spun around, expecting a janitor, but found nothing. Only the shadows of the modern office stretching long and black under the dim lights. I could feel a cold finger trace the line of my spine. And then I saw her, just for a heartbeat. A figure in the reflection of the elevator doors. A young girl, pale and quiet, staring directly at me. She didn't move, didn't blink. She simply watched. I swallowed hard. This isn't real, I muttered, backing away. But deep down, I knew it was. And as I returned to my desk, the sense of being observed didn't fade. It intensified, Deciding I needed a break, I stepped toward the elevators again. The chilling silence pressed in, heavier than before. I pressed the button for the 13th floor, the topmost level where my workstation was. The elevator shivered once and moved, slowly, painfully slow. Each floor passed with a subtle ding, though the numbers didn't align with the indicator. Then I heard it, a child's soft whimper, clear and mournful, coming from the elevator's right-hand side. I froze mid-step. No, that can't be, I whispered. The building was empty. The campus gates were locked. Security guards were long gone. I stepped inside anyway, trying to convince myself it was a trick of acoustics. The doors closed behind me, but the elevator refused to descend when I pressed the ground floor. I jabbed at the buttons. Nothing. Panic bubbled in my chest as the whimpering became louder, now sounding like a voice calling my name. The lights flickered, and for a split second, I thought I saw a small figure pressed against the elevator's mirror wall. I stumbled backward, heart hammering. The elevator jolted suddenly, moving to the 13th floor instead of the ground. The doors opened, revealing the deserted corridor. I could hear the sobbing now from above the stairwell. Trembling, I took the stairs instead, each creaking step echoing as if announcing my presence. At the 13th floor landing, the lights flickered again. The sobbing stopped. Silence. My eyes darted across the empty cubicles and office rooms. Then, a whisper. "Gideon." I froze. The air turned icy. The hallway stretched endlessly, as if the building itself had reshaped around me. I debated running, but curiosity pinned me in place. That was the moment I realized. Whatever this was, it was aware of me, and it wanted me to notice. Unable to focus, I decided to step outside again. The pond looked even more sinister now than it had at sunset. Shadows pooled around its edges, blending with the trees and manicured landscaping. And there she was, the same girl, sitting on the stone ledge, pale, silent, staring into the water. Her presence sent a jolt through me. "Why are you here?" I called, my voice shaking. She turned slowly, her face expressionless. Then she wept silently, but I could see the grief in her eyes. Something about her seemed tethered to this place, as if she had never left. I approached cautiously, unsure if I was dreaming or awake. "Are you real?" I whispered. She raised a trembling hand toward me, and I felt an overwhelming sadness emanate from her. She didn't speak, but gestured toward the building. Something inside me told me to follow. Compelled by some unexplainable force, I followed her to a back stairwell I had never noticed before. The metal stairs were narrow, industrial, echoing each step. The air smelled of cold concrete and dust. My flashlight barely penetrated the darkness, yet I could see her figure move ahead, silent and deliberate. The further I climbed, the heavier the air felt. My chest tightened as a low, murmuring voice filled the stairwell. Words I couldn't understand. I clutched the railing, my knuckles white. Shadows flickered at the edge of my vision, and the sound of small, fast footsteps mirrored mine. At the top of the stairwell, she disappeared. The door ahead was slightly ajar, revealing a dark office room. Something inside whispered my name again. I swallowed hard, knowing that entering could change everything. Yet curiosity and fear held me there, frozen on the threshold. Standing at the top of the stairwell, I hesitated. The office room ahead was dark, silent, almost inviting, yet menacing. I could feel a chill curling around my spine, wrapping my limbs like invisible hands. Every instinct screamed to turn around and run, but some compulsion kept me rooted. The girl, she had been my anchor outside, guiding me, was gone. One moment she was there, small and fragile, at the edge of my vision. The next, vanished. I called her name, but my voice felt swallowed by the heavy air. The room seemed deeper than it should have been, a corridor stretching endlessly beyond the faint light, filtering through the dusty windows. I stepped forward, my shoes scraping against the old carpet, the sound unnaturally loud in the empty space. Papers rustled in the corner, as if moved by an unseen hand. Then, a whisper. Gideon. I froze. That was the same name I had heard before. My heart raced, yet curiosity forced me closer. Shadows shifted along the walls, long, angular, moving against the natural patterns of the room. I could see a desk at the far end, papers scattered as if someone had left in a hurry. And on the chair, a pale handprint smeared across the back, a faint impression of someone leaning just moments ago. The room was empty. No doors opened. No windows revealed movement. Yet I could feel her there, watching, waiting. My chest tightened, and I realized the cold wasn't from the air but from something else, something alive in its own way. I had to leave, yet my legs refused to obey fully. Something was compelling me, a force I couldn't rationalize. I backed out of the room, heart pounding. The stairwell felt narrower than before, claustrophobic. As I descended, the faint sound of sobbing returned, closer this time. It wasn't just crying. It was sorrow laced with warning, pulling at some hidden corner of my mind. I reached the 13th floor landing and looked back. The office doors at the far end were closed now. A faint light flickered behind the glass, like a candle moving against a draft. My rational mind tried to explain it away, but the raw, physical feeling of dread was undeniable. I stepped closer. Through the glass, I thought I saw her. A reflection? No, not a reflection. A girl, small, hunched, staring at me. Her face was pale, almost luminous, and the tears running down her cheeks glinted like molten silver in the dim light. She raised a hand, beckoning silently. My pulse accelerated. Every rational thought screamed that this was impossible. Security guards had cleared the building hours ago. There was no reason anyone should be here, and yet, there she was. I tried to speak. Who are you? Why are you here? My words echoed in the empty hallway, swallowed instantly. She didn't answer, only looked at me with hollow eyes, filled with sorrow and something else. Anger? A warning? I couldn't tell. I stepped forward instinctively, compelled to follow her, drawn into the impossible mystery that surrounded her presence. Drawn to her, I found myself standing outside a restricted office. A sign said, "Authorized personnel only," but the girl was already inside, motionless, as if waiting for me. The door creaked open slightly, inviting me in. I stepped inside cautiously. The room was dark, papers strewn everywhere, and a single desk lamp flickered. Then I saw it. On the floor, near the desk, a small photograph, yellowed and creased. It was her. The same pale girl, smiling in daylight, holding a notebook. My stomach churned. How could this be possible? I had never met her in the real world. Then the sobbing returned, deafening now, as if the room itself was crying. My breath came in short bursts. Shadows shifted, crawling along the walls like living things. The girl looked at me, and this time she spoke, her voice almost a whisper. "You shouldn't be here." I froze. I wanted to run, but I couldn't. Something about her presence held me, pinned me to the spot. The feeling of dread was suffocating, pressing on my chest. And yet I couldn't look away. Something, some invisible force, demanded that I see everything, know everything, experience everything. I stepped closer to her, my voice barely audible. What do you want from me?" The room chilled instantly, my breath visible in the air. The girl's eyes glowed faintly in the darkness. She tilted her head, a subtle smile that didn't reach her eyes. Then she spoke again. "You've come too far. You'll see things you can't forget." Before I could respond, a gust of wind slammed the office door shut. The lamp flickered violently. Papers lifted from the desk, circling like leaves in a storm. My knees buckled. I tried to step back, but something invisible pressed against me, holding me in place. The sobbing turned into screams, echoing across the floor, through walls, and down the stairwell. I realized then that this was no ordinary encounter. Whatever she wasn't alive, at least not in the way I understood life. And she wasn't bound by the rules of reality. The office, the pond, the hallways, they all seemed to warp around her presence. I had entered a space where the living and the dead intertwined, and there was no turning back. I stumbled back toward the large office window, still trying to make sense of what had just happened. The girl's presence felt heavier now, as if the air itself was being twisted around her. My hand touched the cold glass, and I saw her reflection. Not just her, but something behind her, lurking in the darkness. A sudden, sharp scream pierced the room, freezing my blood. I turned, but the office was empty. Then, through the glass, I saw her silhouette, small and delicate, moving closer to the edge of the ledge outside. My heart thudded violently in my chest. No one should have been on that ledge. Not at this height, not at this hour. "Wait," I shouted. My voice cracked. She paused, looked directly at me, her eyes hollow yet intense. In that instant, I understood. This wasn't just a person. She was trapped in this place, bound by something terrible, something that wanted to keep her here forever. I took a step forward, but my foot caught on a loose wire. The sound echoed unnaturally in the empty office, and she flinched. The next moment, she stepped off the ledge. Time slowed as I saw her fall, a pale figure against the night sky. I ran to the window, pressed my face to the glass, and watched helplessly as she landed in the pond below. The water erupted in a splash, but when I looked closer, she was still there, unmoving, yet somehow looking at me. Her presence reached into my mind, a silent invitation and a warning at the same time. I realized then that this building held secrets far darker than I could imagine, and that she was both a part of them and a prisoner of them. I rushed to the back exit, heart hammering. Outside, the pond shimmered under the faint moonlight. The water was unusually still, unnaturally calm. And there she was, sitting on the bank, pale and silent, staring into the dark water. Her reflection twisted in ways that didn't align with reality, flickering as if the pond itself had a memory of something far older than the building. The moment I approached, the air grew thick, heavy, pressing down on my chest. The faint sound of crying returned, mixed with an undercurrent of whispers. I knelt beside the pond, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. She was real, yet not real. Alive, yet not alive. And as I looked into her eyes, I could feel the pain she had endured in life, an impossible grief that had somehow seeped into the pond itself. Suddenly, the water rippled violently, though there was no wind. Something beneath the surface shifted, sending concentric waves across the glassy pond. My stomach turned. I wanted to turn away, to run, but a part of me was rooted to the spot, compelled to understand what had happened here, what this girl wanted me to see. And then it came, the whisper, directly into my mind. You must see it all. You cannot leave yet. I froze, realizing that the pond was more than water. It was a memory, a warning, a trap. Every time a new visitor entered this office complex at night, this pond would remember, replaying the tragedy, ensuring no one left without witnessing a fragment of the horror that had occurred. After standing by the pond for what felt like hours, I realized the weight of what the night held. I returned to the security booth, exhausted, to find the guard waiting. His face was pale, worn by years of witnessing the unexplainable. I know what you saw, he said quietly. That girl, she doesn't belong here anymore. But the building holds her, and it doesn't let go of anyone who sees her. I tried to speak, to ask questions, but words failed me. The guard continued, explaining in low tones about the tragedies that had occurred, employees who had vanished, whispers of shadows moving independently, and the chilling presence of the girl always waiting at the pond, always drawing in anyone who wandered too close. He warned me never to return after dark, not for work, not for curiosity. The girl wasn't malicious, exactly, but she existed on the border between worlds. Anyone who encountered her would carry the mark of that night forever, a shadow in their own mind. I nodded numbly, absorbing every word. And yet I couldn't shake the feeling that part of me had changed, that I had crossed a threshold, and the building, the pond, and the girl had somehow inscribed themselves into my memory permanently. I left the office complex that night, walking toward my car in silence. The streets were empty, the city asleep, yet the memory of the girl by the pond pressed heavily on me. The guard's words echoed in my mind. She had been real, the fall from the window, real, the grief tangible. I glanced back at the office complex, windows dark, the pond invisible in the shadows, but I could feel her presence, faint yet persistent, like a cold hand brushing my shoulder. I realized then that some experiences can't be forgotten. They linger, shaping perception, warping reality. Even now, writing this, I feel it, the pull of that place. The pond's reflection, the girl's hollow eyes, the whisper in the dark. And I know that anyone who sees her will carry a fragment of her world, a reminder that some horrors are tethered to places, memories, and the lives of those who witness them. I never returned to that office. But every time I see a pond, every time I walk past a dark building at night, I feel the pull again. And I know some doors, once opened, never truly close. Returning inside the office the next day felt different. The fluorescent lights flickered as I stepped through the lobby, and the air smelled faintly of ozone and damp concrete. Everything seemed normal at first glance. The desks, the computers, the empty chairs. But an unease clung to every corner. I walked past the elevator shaft, the one where the strange noises had echoed the previous night. I could almost hear the faint giggle, the irregular footsteps, though the place was empty. My coworkers were already at their stations, pretending nothing had happened, their laughter and chatter sounding strangely hollow. I climbed the stairs to the 13th floor, the floor where everything had first started. Each step creaked beneath my weight, the sound amplified in the silence. I reached the floor and froze. There, by a corner window, was a faint imprint of a figure, the shape of a young girl, as though she had been standing there just moments ago. My pulse raced. I forced myself to take a step closer. The room was empty. yet the feeling of being watched pressed down on me like a heavy weight. I realized that the office itself had become a vessel of memory, replaying fragments of the tragedy for anyone brave or foolish enough to notice. Every desk, every cubicle seemed to hold echoes of the past, whispers, sudden chills, the faintest sounds of movement. I sat at my workstation, hands trembling, and tried to focus on the presentation I had to prepare. But I could feel her presence near the window, urging, watching, silently drawing me in. The office had transformed overnight. No longer just a workplace, it was a haunted labyrinth of memories, grief, and unfinished stories, where one wrong step could open a door that should never be opened. I decided to investigate the stairwell, the route she had taken when she disappeared. The metal stairs smelled of rust and dampness. Each step echoed with an eerie precision, making it impossible to ignore the presence lingering in the shadows. As I climbed, I noticed faint scratches on the walls, almost like claw marks. My imagination ran wild, picturing the girl's terror, the desperation of someone trapped between life and death. I reached the 13th floor landing and froze. The echo of a child's laughter resonated from the end of the corridor, sending chills through my body. I called out cautiously, "Hello? Is anyone here?" Silence. Then, a sudden gust of cold air brushed against my neck, as if something invisible had passed by. The hairs on my arms stood straight, and my heartbeat accelerated. I pressed forward, stepping into the 13th floor hallway. Each office door appeared normal, yet a subtle distortion seemed to warp the space near the windows. Shadows danced independently of any light source. The building felt alive, aware, and profoundly resentful of any intrusion. I reached the edge of the hallway, the space where I had first seen her sitting silently. A chill ran through me, stronger than ever, as I realized the girl wasn't just a memory. She was an entity tethered to the building, feeding on the fears of anyone who dared enter. I returned to the elevator, compelled to understand why it had malfunctioned that night. Pressing the button, I felt a vibration, like the building itself exhaling. The doors opened silently. I stepped in cautiously. The elevator was empty, yet the air was thick. As I pressed the button for the ground floor, the display flickered. Floor numbers skipped, showing sequences that didn't exist. The lights inside the cabin dimmed and brightened rhythmically, synchronized with my pulse. Suddenly, a faint voice whispered from the shaft. "Stay. Stay with me." I spun around, but the cabin was empty. The elevator jolted violently, halting between floors. Panic surged. I grabbed the handrail, trying to steady myself as the doors remained stuck, refusing to open. After what felt like an eternity, the doors slowly parted. I stepped out onto a floor I didn't recognize, an abandoned section of the building, filled with dusty cubicles and shattered monitors. Shadows moved along the walls, and I felt the girl's presence again. She was here, somewhere, silently observing, tethering me to this haunting labyrinth. Compelled, I returned to the window ledge where she had fallen. The moonlight reflected off the pond below. The ledge felt alive, vibrating slightly under my fingers. I could almost sense her presence lingering, as if her spirit had never left. I leaned over cautiously. The water below rippled without wind. The pond reflected not the present, but memories, her screaming, falling, sitting silently, waiting. It was a mirror of grief, an echo of a life interrupted. I stepped back. My mind raced. She wasn't just haunting the building. She was haunting anyone who dared witness her story. Every corner, every floor, every empty cubicle became a portal to her past, replaying her pain. A sudden shadow passed behind me, and a whisper echoed. "Don't leave. Stay." My skin crawled. I understood now. The girl's story was not finished, and neither was my encounter. The presence of the girl became overwhelming. Shadows seemed to detach from walls, forming vague humanoid shapes. I ran through the hallways, following a trail of cold air that guided me toward the back exit. The building shifted around me. Doors appeared where none existed. Corridors stretched impossibly long. I heard whispers, snippets of conversations, cries, laughter, all blending into a dissonant symphony of terror. Every step was a fight against the pull of the building. I realized that anyone who ventured here after dark became part of the entity's domain, drawn into its distorted reality. Yet, I could not stop. My mind clung to one idea: escape. Finally, the pond came into view. The girl stood at its edge again, motionless, silent, her eyes locked onto mine. I understood her invitation, her warning, and with a surge of adrenaline, I sprinted past her, toward the safety of the street beyond. Bursting into the night air, I collapsed on the pavement outside. The building loomed behind me, silent, brooding. The pond's surface reflected nothing now, only darkness. I realized I had survived, but part of me remained tethered to that place. The guard met me, his expression grave. "You've seen her," he said. I nodded, voice lost in exhaustion. "The girl. She's everywhere, and nowhere. You've been marked. Remember this: never return after dark." I drove home, hands trembling, heart pounding. The city light seemed warm, safe, ordinary. Yet every reflection, every shadow reminded me of that night. She was waiting, always waiting. And some doors, once opened, never closed completely. I never returned. And every time I pass a tall office building or a quiet pond at night, I remember her eyes, her grief, and the whispers that will forever haunt me.